friends insane persons, and welcome back to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I'm Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10, some board game related topic, or whatever else happens to be on my mind that week. Well, I'm back, live-ish and in person. I was in Malta for a period, and so the last episode was a pre-recorded one, but that's okay. Um, but here I am. It's actually Wednesday. It's the last Wednesday in November, to the 29th. And I'm here to talk to you about a game that I actually played while I was on the road and in Malta. And that game is called. I say a game. It's actually kind of like three, but it is called 20 Strong. So 20 Strong from Chip Theory Games is more of a game system than a game of itself. The box itself comes with, 20 dice. That's 20 strong, I guess, and one little chip on this little holder, and the chip has different functions in each of the games, and it can keep track of things basically. And then what you're going to do is have an actual game that you choose to play. And there's currently three different versions. There's the Solar Sentinels, which is a new property from Chip Theory. I don't think they've made another game in the Solar Sentinels series. But I guess it's kind of like about some space ninja people who fight off giant bugs. Maybe a game's coming. I don't know. Then there's two based on kind of existing properties, and those are Too Many Bones, a game I love, 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 and Hoplomachus Victorium, a game I quite enjoy. So, three games that you can play that all sort of use a similar set of rules and a similar set of components, but each play out a little bit differently. So I'm not going to talk about each one in great depth because I don't want this to be a Wednesday whimsy that goes on into Thursday. But let me see if I can figure out how to share here. I should know this by now, but here we go. So we go here, and I'll show you a little bit about how the game works, and then we'll talk about what I think about it. So basically, the way the game works is you're going to after you pick your scenario, you're going to go through a number of rounds until you win or lose. And each of the games has you win by defeating some sort of a boss, and you lose if you run out of health or run out of dice, which will lead to you running out of health. But basically, after you set up the game, each round, and this is someone playing the Solar Sentinels version, which is kind of the basic game. But you have a pool of dice, and these dice they come in different colors. There's red dice, which are the strongest, and then there are purples, which I think have one miss on them, blues that have, I think, two misses, greens that have three misses, and yellows that have four misses. They also all have one critical hit on them, and so the critical hit's going to do double damage. Each round, you're going to select a number of enemies, and the number you select will vary depending on the game you're playing, but you'll select a number of enemies. Sometimes they'll have effects that influence the combat, but then you're going to select a number of your dice and roll them. And the number you select can be any number you like. It has to be from your active pool. And then after you do that, you can apply the dice, and you can kind of do re-rolls equal to I think it's your strategy stat is what it's called, but it's this middle blue shield stat, which is you've got a starting value, but it can increase or decrease over the course of the game. So like this person, it looks like it's a 3, so they've got a total of 3 rolls. And each time you roll, you can add more dice if you'd like. Ultimately, you're trying to reach the value on each of these cards, the health value, so that you can defeat the enemy. If you do so, usually the effects of the enemy go away. There are some that don't, but if you fail to do so, though, the enemy is going to do its damage back to you. And the damage is going to be this sort of amount here at the bottom. That will reduce your health stat. And if your health goes down below 1, you lose. And then, and this is sort of the core mechanism, sort of the core punch of the game, all the dice you used, whether you applied them or not, are going to go away to an exhausted area where you will not necessarily have a way to use them again. And then you're going to use your recover stat, which is this bottom one, and that tells you how many dice you can take from your exhausted pool and move back to your active pool. Now, you've got 17 dice plus the 3 stat dice that you don't roll. And so you've got to kind of make them last all the way through the game. So you're trying to sort of balance how much you want to commit, knowing that if you fail to win, bad things are going to happen. And if you overcommit, you're wasting dice that you might not be able to get back. Now there are special abilities you'll be able to use, and by defeating enemies, often you get more special abilities. And you're going to keep going until you reach the end game, which, depending on the version of the game you're playing, will happen differently. In Solar Sentinels, there's these 3 enemy stacks, and once one of the stacks is empty, you're able to challenge the boss. In Too Many Bones, you go for a certain number of days until you decide you've reached a certain number that's printed on the card, and days are rounds basically, and then you can challenge the boss. And then in Victorum, you have 3 sort of mini bosses to defeat, and after you've done that, then you go and challenge the boss. So it's kind of up to you how you're going to, based on the game you're playing, sort of the timing and how it's going to work. But if you beat the boss, you win. If you don't beat the boss, well, you don't win. And that's kind of how it is. It's a pretty simple game. And you can kind of see some pictures here of the different sets. These are Solar Sentinels. This one was a Too Many Bones character. But they all kind of look, similar, and they all use the same dice. They just use them in different ways. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit. I guess before I do that, I'll tell a little bit about the difference between the 3 different games. So Solar Sentinels is the basic one. You're fighting these bugs. You defeat a stack of bugs, and at the end of every round, you must discard a card from a stack. Now, some of the stacks are going to have mandatory enemies, which have to be the next one you engage. Many of the cards will add additional enemies, and then you also have a set of goals that missions you're trying to complete. You have to complete them in order, and if you fail to complete them, well, the boss is going to get additional support. And so you're sort of balancing, the timing of your missions and how you're going to go through these stacks. In Too Many Bones, you've got a tyrant, and the tyrant has a number printed on it, which is the number of days. And you're supposed to try and get to the tyrant. You're supposed to improve yourself so that you're ready to fight the tyrant after that many days. That number, it could be that number or more, but on the 12th day, you have to fight the tyrant. And you've got unlock missions that are going to let you, unlock a die, or unlock a treasure that'll give you a special ability. You've got fights. You've got these boss encounters, and the number of boss encounters that are left in the deck at the end when you go to the tyrant is going to make the tyrant stronger. And so it's kind of the same rule set, but you're not trying to clear out a stack. Instead, it's a set number of rounds, but largely the same kind of general ability. You also have your backup plan. When you miss, you can assign dice there, and you can use them to get some sort of a special ability. And you can also upgrade your character by filling up your backup plan by dice of all of the different colors that are printed on it. And then Victorum, you're going to set up this pyramid. I think it's a 3-2-1, or is it a 4-3-2? Yeah, it's a 4-3-2 with your sort of scion, the big boss, up at the top. And each round, you don't really use this chip for anything. It's just kind of a tracker to decide where you are. And each round, you're going to move to an adjacent stack and encounter the top card of that stack. And those encounters could be a fight. They could be an opportunity, which is basically a goal that you can later on do. And if you do it, you're going to get some sort of a bonus. And then 3 of the stacks are going to have, what are they called? Forgetting the term that's used, but they're going to have bosses underneath them. and and you can choose to fight the boss instead of fighting the top card on there. When you've beaten all 3 bosses, you go and automatically challenge the Scion. So kind of the same thing. We're just going there in different ways. There's not a set number of encounters in Victorum. It's just sort of, moving around. You constantly have to be on the move, and you're trying to keep track of both where you are on this pyramid and also make sure you're encountering the right type of encounter each day, as you again slowly improve your stats, get weapons and abilities, and then you can go and fight the boss. So what makes the game special? Well, first of all, one thing I'll definitely give the game is that is just amazing is, it fits in a box this size. Now, I have the 3 sets separate, but this box is big enough to accommodate one of them. So when I went to Malta, I just took the basic Solar Sentinels version. It fits nicely in here with the dice, and I was ready to go. I could set it up and play it whenever I wanted. It does not take up that much space. It takes up more space than I think you would think, given that the box is so small. But it's very, very portable. Also, it is a dedicated solo game. It only has rules for 1 player, so you're playing it by yourself. And when you're traveling, that's often fantastic because you don't know if you're going to find someone to play. So super portable, super very solo friendly. Those are great special things about it. Secondly, the production of the game is pretty good. It's Too Many Bones likes to print on plastic cards, and so all the cards are that nice plastic that has the feeling of being durable. This chip is nice. It's the only chip in this chip theory game, which is kind of a surprise. You use this counter in the Too Many Bones set. You don't really use it in any of the others. It's just kind of, it's a tracker. It's a position marker in Victorum, and you can use it for some of your missions, I guess, in Solar Sentinels. So I'm not quite. I wish this were. It feels like a nice component. It's magnetized so the chip doesn't fall out, and it's nice to sort of keep track of something with there. I just wish that it had a more intuitive use. The dice are nice. It's easy to see the difference between them, so you can know which ones you should be using based upon their odds. It's a very good production overall. I enjoy how they have brought the thematic experiences of Hoplomachus Victorum and Too Many Bones into these very small packages. In fact, Too Many Bones, it has a Too Many Bones-like feel, but without a lot of the tactical movement and combat that's in Too Many Bones. You also don't have that sort of dice tree that you're upgrading, so there's not as much have as much control over your upgrades. So I don't think that it's better than Too Many Bones, but it does give you a nice flavor of the game in a small, portable, 20-minute experience rather than the long haul that is the large, heavy game that is Too Many Bones. And for Victorum, so Hoplomachus Victorum is like a 6 to 8 hour solo experience that's huge and heavy and plotting, and I like a lot, but you really have to be committed going into it. It's just so much. And this delivers, honestly, a lot of the same experience, but in a fraction of the time. I might even like this better than I like Victorum. So good job there. And then the Solar Sentinels is I don't know what it's trying to be because that's not a game that has come out yet. But I think it does a great version of giving you a nice game experience that's short and compact and is also pretty easy to understand. The rules aren't that hard. I will say the rule book is, it's this small thing, and then each game has its own separate rule sheet. So, there might be a few more rules than you would expect. And there's a little bit of we'll talk about that in a moment, but some close cases that you may have to make calls on. But in general, it's It's pretty fast and easy to understand. It's also a lot of fun. It's a great way to kind of unwind at the end of a day, set it up, shuffle up a deck, play the game, and have a good time with it. So where's the but? Well, there's two, I guess, buts here. The first one is that the game is, well, it's extremely random, right? I mean, this is very much a dice game. You're rolling dice. You expect it to be random. There's not a whole lot you can do if you get a bad die roll. You can plan better, I guess, for the next round. But, if you've gone on and you're sort of toward the end of the game and then you just crap out, that can be disappointing. It's always disappointing to lose based upon a bad draw or an unlucky set of of rolls of the dice. Not much you can do about that, but you kind of have to understand that going in that it's going to be very random. It's not going to be a game that really focuses on planning. You don't know when or if certain things are going to come up. You just kind of have to understand that. And then the other thing is that I alluded to it earlier. The rules, they're a little bit opaque. It's this tiny rule book that's great because it fits nicely in the box, but it doesn't explain all the rules in all the depth that I think they need. So, you might have to wing it a couple of times and just make interpretations. I mean, I didn't find it to be that big a deal, but be aware of that. It feels like it could be a little tighter in the rules. But other than that, I did not have any major negatives to it. Again, this is a small $20 game, whereas at least Victorium and Too Many Bones are more than $100. So you're getting a great experience for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the size, and it's a great travel game. So what's my final rating? Well, I mean, this game is not. I'm not going to say this game is going to blow your mind or anything, but I do like that it is an expandable system. They've already announced some sort of fairy tale version that's coming out at some point next year. So I mean, it has a lot of legs. I would love to see them do a burn cycle and a Cloud Spire version of this game as well. I don't know how they could, right? Those games don't seem like they would fit in this system, but hey, why not? But I really like it. I think I would give this one an 8 out of 10 because it's a solo only game, and it's not the best solo game, right? There are better solo experiences, but this one doesn't pretend to be something it's not. There's not a lot of administration to do. There's not a phantom player that you've got to spend half the game managing. It's just play, flip over some cards, encounter them, see what happens, experience this, and then put it away and you're done. I think as a solo experience, which is what this is, I think it's great. I recommend it. I think it's something that solo players will really get a kick out of. It doesn't feel like a roll and write. Lots of solo games these days end up kind of boiling down to a roll and write experience. And this one is trying to be something different. And I think it does it quite well. So 8 out of 10 for me. I don't know that I can recommend it to everybody. Many people don't like to play solo. And if you don't, this isn't going to change your mind. But if you do, and if you enjoy Too Many Bones or Hoplomachus Victorum, this is a great. I check this out. I think it's a great way to play those games. In a version of those games. If you don't, if you like solo games, this is definitely worth looking at. If you want something that you can travel with, you travel alone a lot. Hey, this is a game I might bring with me lots of times when I'm traveling. I mean, I just think this is one of those games I'm just going to throw into my suitcase because it's just great for that. Anyway, 8 out of 10 from me. Try before you buy, although this one isn't even very expensive, so maybe, go out on a splurge, I guess, if it sounds interesting to you. But that's all from me on 20 Strong. Let's, I guess, bring this one to a close. I thank you for joining me. I will wish you safe travels and courage when you need it. And I'll hope to see you back here next week, for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye bye.